Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm 30 years old. I live in a small apartment in Brooklyn, and I work full-time as a freelance graphic designer. It's not glamorous, but I love what I do, even when it means long nights and clients who don't know what they want. Money's tight, but I get by. I've always been proud of my independence, even if I have to make sacrifices to stay afloat. Like most people in the city, I juggle bills and dreams like they weigh the same. That week had already been a struggle. A client delayed their payment, my internet went out for a day, and I had to skip groceries to make rent. Then, on Wednesday, I got a group text from my cousin Madison. Family dinner this Friday. Dress nice, we're going to the Maple Room at 7. That was it. No details, no context. Just an expectation that I'd drop everything and show up like I belonged in that world. The Maple Room was not a place I ever imagined setting foot in. It's the kind of restaurant with velvet menus, valet parking, and portions so small they come with a magnifying glass. I almost laughed when I saw the name. I didn't even own anything nice enough for their dress code. My wardrobe was a rotation of jeans, thrifted tops, and 2 pairs of shoes. One for walking, one for interviews I hadn't landed yet. Still, I couldn't say no. My grandmother, who raised me after my mom left, was going to be there. I hadn't seen her in months, and part of me missed her terribly. We used to be so close before she started drifting more toward the rest of the family, the wealthier, flashier side. She always said I reminded her of herself when she was young. I didn't want to disappoint her, even if I felt completely out of place. So, I dug through my closet and pulled out a simple navy blue dress I bought last year at a clearance sale. It was clean, wrinkle-free, and fit well enough. It wasn't designer, but it was me. Plain, practical, and honest. I added a pair of small pearl earrings Grandma had given me when I turned 25 and tied my hair back into a low bun. That was all I had to offer. Friday night came too fast. As I stood in front of the restaurant, I caught my reflection in the window. I didn't look poor, but I didn't look expensive either. I looked normal. My stomach twisted as I walked in. The hostess looked me up and down, her smile a little too tight, then guided me to the private dining room in the back. They were all already there, my cousins in their sleek dresses, uncles in tailored suits, and Grandma at the head of the table, her silver hair perfectly curled. The room buzzed with soft jazz and low conversation. I hesitated in the doorway, hoping someone would greet me. No one did. Madison gave me a once-over, then leaned toward her sister to whisper something with a smirk. I took the only empty seat, 2 spots away from Grandma, and placed my napkin on my lap, trying not to shrink into the chair. My cousin Logan, ever the charming instigator, raised an eyebrow. "That dress, Rachel? Vintage?" His tone was sharp with irony, and it drew a few chuckles. I forced a smile and muttered something about liking classics. My voice felt small. The conversation moved on without me. They talked about ski trips, investment portfolios, and art auctions. I couldn't even pretend to understand. I sipped my water and tried not to look at the menu's prices. Appetizers started at $30. I felt like a tourist in a country where I didn't speak the language. I kept waiting for Grandma to look over and say something. Anything. But she stayed silent, her eyes cast down. Then came the entree orders. The waiter took everyone's choices before turning to me. I hesitated, then asked, "Do you have anything vegetarian?" A few snickers broke the silence. "Still on your bohemian lifestyle, huh?" Madison quipped. "I mean, it's cute that you stick to your ideals." I nodded, heart racing, cheeks burning. It wasn't the food. It was never about the food. And then, just as I reached for my glass again, Grandma finally looked up. Her voice, soft but firm, cut through the noise. I'm the one paying her rent. The entire table froze. You could have heard a pin drop. Forks paused midair. Glasses hovered just shy of lips. All eyes turned to Grandma, who sat calmly at the head of the table, her hands folded over her lap, her expression unreadable. Madison blinked like she'd misheard. "What?" she asked, her voice half laugh, half wince. "You pay her rent?" Grandma didn't flinch. "Yes," she said, looking directly at Madison. "I do. Because while the rest of you measure your worth by labels and vacation homes, Rachel works harder than anyone I know. She doesn't ask for much. She never has." Her words were slow, intentional, and landed like small earthquakes across the table. I froze. unsure whether to feel grateful or exposed. A thick silence followed, but not the comfortable kind. It was heavy with judgment, embarrassment, confusion. My Uncle Dan cleared his throat, clearly trying to steer the mood back to neutral. "Well, that's very generous of you, Mom," he said, glancing at me with a tight smile. "Of course, we all want to support each other in our own way." His attempt at damage control felt as hollow as the clink of his fork against his untouched steak. I felt every eye on me. My palms were damp, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know if I was supposed to thank her or crawl under the table. My instinct was to disappear. But then I caught Grandma's gaze. It wasn't pity I saw there. It was pride. That hit me harder than any insult that night. She wasn't ashamed. She was defending me. Madison laughed again, but this time it was brittle. "I mean, if that's the case, maybe Rachel can give us all some financial advice." A few weak chuckles followed, but Grandma didn't break her gaze. "You think this is about money?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "This is about values. Rachel helps people. She creates. She doesn't pretend to be more than she is." That's more than I can say for most at this table. The waiter came with the food then, sensing the awkwardness but unsure how to fix it. Plates were placed in front of each of us, but no one seemed hungry anymore. I stared at mine, trying to breathe, my chest tight with emotion. I wasn't used to being defended. Not like this. Not by her. Especially not in front of the people who made me feel like I was always one wrong move from being invisible. "Grandma," I finally spoke, my voice shaking. "You didn't have to say all that." She reached out, resting her hand lightly over mine. "I did," she said softly, "because I've watched you struggle in silence for too long, and I'm tired of everyone pretending like what matters is what you wear or who you know. You've earned every bit of respect in this room. They just forgot what that looks like." A few chairs shifted. My cousin Olivia looked down at her plate, her cheeks red. Uncle Dan coughed again, louder this time. "So," he said awkwardly, "how's everyone enjoying the salmon?" No one answered. The tension hadn't left. It just settled deeper, but something in me shifted. For the first time that night, I sat up straighter. I didn't know what this meant for future family gatherings. I didn't know if they'd see me differently now, or resent me more. But I knew one thing. I wasn't alone. I wasn't invisible. And no matter how cheap they thought my dress was, I walked into that room as myself, and walked out with someone finally saying I mattered. After dinner ended, awkwardly, abruptly, people left in clusters, avoiding eye contact. I lingered near the entrance, unsure whether to hug anyone or just disappear. Grandma looped her arm through mine before I could decide. "Let's get out of here," she whispered. Her tone was warm, but tired. We walked out into the crisp night air, silence settling between us like an old habit. Her car, a modest gray sedan that didn't match the luxury she could afford, was parked a block away. We walked slowly, the cold nipping at our cheeks. I kept waiting for her to say something, anything to explain why she'd chosen that moment, of all places, to speak up. But she didn't. Not until we were inside, seatbelts clicked, heater humming softly, windows fogging at the corners. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you," she said, finally. Her voice was gentler than it had been at dinner, but I couldn't sit there and listen to them treat you like that. I nodded, unsure how to respond. My throat felt tight, and my chest heavier than I wanted to admit. I hadn't cried at the table, but now, in the safety of her car, the tears pushed forward like they'd been waiting for permission. "I know," I whispered. I didn't want them to know." She glanced over at me, one hand still on the steering wheel. "Why not? It's nothing to be ashamed of, Rachel. Everyone needs help sometimes." I looked away, blinking hard, because they already think I'm less, that I've failed, and now they'll think I'm pathetic. She exhaled deeply, shifting in her seat to face me more directly. "They don't think you failed, sweetheart. They don't think about you at all. That's the problem." Her words weren't cruel. They were honest. Honest in a way that only someone who's watched you closely could be. You walk into their world and remind them that kindness and effort and honesty still matter. That scares people who only measure themselves by money. I leaned my head back against the seat, letting the heater warm my face. "I'm just tired," I said quietly. "Tired of pretending like I don't care when they laugh at me. Tired of working so hard and still falling behind. I feel like I'm always 2 steps away from drowning." She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was firm, familiar. And yet, you keep swimming. That's what matters. We drove through the city in silence after that, headlights washing over brick buildings, closed shops, people bundled in coats waiting for late buses. The world looked softer through the window, less harsh somehow. I thought about the way Madison had smirked, the way Logan raised his eyebrows, the way no one else said anything when it happened. And I thought about how Grandma's voice cut through it all like a lighthouse in fog. As we pulled up in front of my apartment, I turned to her. "Thank you," I said, "for everything, for helping, for saying something." She smiled, but her eyes were misty now too. "You don't owe me thanks. I'm just proud of you. Always have been. I just wish I'd told you more often." I nodded, heart full and aching all at once. "You just did." She leaned over, kissed my forehead, and waited until I unlocked the building door before driving away. I climbed the stairs slowly, still holding the warmth of her hand in mine. My apartment was dark and quiet when I walked in. I didn't turn on the lights right away. I just stood there, in my simple dress, in my tiny living room, feeling more seen than I had in a long time. The following Monday, the world felt quieter, almost like the storm of that dinner had passed, but left a stillness in its wake. My inbox showed only the usual noise of work, briefs, follow-ups, invoices. But in the middle of it, a short message from Olivia popped up. "Hey, just wanted to say I'm sorry for how everyone acted Friday. You didn't deserve that." I stared at the screen for a long minute. I hadn't expected anything from anyone, and that made her words hit even harder. I replied simply, "Thank you. That means more than you know." But I carried that message with me all day. It wasn't an apology from the whole table, but it was something, a crack in the wall. And for someone like Olivia, who usually stayed quiet in the background, it meant she'd noticed, and she'd cared enough to reach out. Sometimes, that's all you need to start breathing easier again. One person, one truth, one moment of kindness. Later that week, I got a text from Aunt Carol, just a comment on a photo I'd posted of my sketchbook, but even that felt like a shift. She wrote, "You've always been so talented." No mention of the dinner, no explanation, just a quiet nod of acknowledgement. It wasn't an apology either, but it didn't feel fake. That silence at the table had been loud, but now the silence afterward was starting to say something else. Maybe they were reflecting too. Madison never said a word. Logan stayed silent. But Uncle Dan sent a message a few days later. "Hope you're doing well. Your grandmother talks about you a lot." I didn't know what to make of it. Guilt? Politeness? A genuine attempt? Still, I replied with a short thank you. I wasn't trying to win them over. I just wanted them to see that I didn't need to be invisible to keep the peace. I was done shrinking myself. Work picked up as if the universe had heard my heart open. A nonprofit that helps low-income families hired me to design their campaign. It felt serendipitous. The timing, the message, the purpose, it all aligned. As I drafted the visuals, I poured in pieces of myself. The frustration, the pride, the quiet resilience. It was more than a job. It was a reflection of my life, and for the first time, my work felt like my voice. 2 weeks after the dinner, Grandma called. "Come over Friday. Just you and me. I'll make lasagna. You can bring dessert, or nothing at all." Her voice was warm, full of intention. "I want a night without judgment or small talk, just us." I smiled into the phone, relief blooming in my chest. "Only if I can wear my cheap dress," I joked. She laughed. "Deal. I'll wear my bathrobe if you do." Friday came, and I packed up groceries, some fresh herbs, pasta, her favorite cookies. Nothing fancy, just comfort food. Her house smelled like memories, oregano, garlic, warmth. We cooked together like we used to when I was a teen, side by side, no rush. She let me chop onions even though she knew I'd cry. We moved around the kitchen like two women who had nothing to prove to anyone anymore. Over dinner, we talked about old family stories, her garden, a book she was reading. No one else came up. Not Madison, not the others. It wasn't about avoiding them. It was about choosing peace. We laughed over silly things, and she let me play a few of my latest design drafts on her tablet. "You've got something rare," she said. "You build things that make people feel seen." Before I left, she handed me a small envelope. "No pressure," she said. "Just a little help, for whatever dream you've been holding back. Inside was a check, generous but not flashy, and a handwritten note. Use this for rent. Or don't. Use it for something that makes you feel alive. I believe in you. Love, Grandma. I read it twice. The tears came quietly this time. Not from shame, but from feeling loved without condition. That night, back in my apartment, I stood by the window and watched the lights of the city stretch far and wide. I didn't feel like the girl in the cheap dress anymore. I felt like someone who had survived something and come out clearer. I didn't need designer labels to be worth respect. I just needed people who saw me, fully. And the most important one had always been there, at the head of the table, choosing me when it mattered most.